What do the Akashic Records want spiritual women to commit to right now? Hi, my name is Susie, Soul Alchemist, and this is your weekly reading for the week ahead. So we are in some amazing energy at the moment. It is the 2nd of the 2nd. So we have the 2-2 portal. We also had the full moon in Leo last night as well. So this is a real time to really start making commitments to yourself, to commit to yourself and your future in order to help you to move forwards. So we have 4 cards come out. I planned on doing 4 cards have come out, so we have a bonus card today. So the records are really highlighting it is time for us to put clear boundaries in place and really make that commitment to yourself. When we have clear boundaries in place, not only do we know where we stand, but people around us know where we stand as well. Now, as a spiritual woman, you are probably over giving, right? And leaking your energy in all sorts of different places. So this card is really asking you to pay attention to your boundaries, right? And if the boundaries are not clear, if they're a little bit unstable, then this is the time to really put those boundaries in place, right? So this doesn't need to necessarily be something really, really dramatic, but when we have clear boundaries in place, in our work life, in our business, in our relationships, then things become a lot easier, right? Because people will know where those boundaries are. They will stop taking from you consistently, right? When we don't have clear boundaries in place and we're consistently over giving, we're burning ourselves out, right? There is no stability to keep giving. We're going to end up in burnout. Maybe you've got some perhaps blurred lines with clients or within a relationship, right? And this causes our emotions to be all over the place, right? Because we're taking on so many different things. It's so important that we have boundaries in place with our own energy, right? So, one of those boundaries could be that, you do an energy practice every single day to clear your energy, to protect your energy, to protect yourself. So, some kind of meditation or ritual or using something like sage or an essential oil that is going to help you to protect your own energy. Boundaries are about protecting your energy so that people can't, well, not just people, situations, events and all of those things can't literally drain the life out of us, right? And that leaves us in this emotional burnout state. So having boundaries in place gives people, situations and yourself like a clear directive of what is and isn't available to you, okay? Boundaries, when we look at the Akashic Records, are very much an act of self-respect and self-trust as well, right? And we're being asked to commit to ourselves and put boundaries in place in every area of our lives, okay? And that's going to help others and it's going to help us as well. Okay, so the next card is a victim mentality, right? Now, this is not a judgment. This is an invitation to really start looking at where you perhaps go into a woe is me energy, right? And I believe that we are all capable of that, right? We all have moments where we feel things don't work out for us or, it's really hard to achieve something or manifest something or whatever it may be, right? So this is really about awareness and where you are placing yourself in that energy. So it might be that, you feel that you don't have choices, right? That is a victim mentality energy. We have choices around everything. Maybe something like, this is just the way it is, or this is just how it is, right? That is also victim mentality, because we have the power to change things, right? Or I'll deal with it later. You're putting things off and you're still sitting in that same energy because perhaps consciously or subconsciously, that thing that you've put off for later is going round in your head and you're just burning energy, right? So the Akashic Records are really here revealing the stories of where we feel powerless, right? Or where we allow powerlessness to linger, right? So these could be old stories, they could be past life stories that are still going on, right? When we're talking about victim mentality, we're talking about the stories that we are telling ourselves. And this can include self-doubt as well, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy enough to change anything. The records aren't denying that you have past wounds, that, sometimes we can all go into victim mentality. What they're asking you is whether you want to still carry this story as it is stopping your growth, right? It's stopping growth, expansion, up level. So this card is really asking you to notice where you're telling yourself a story that actually is no longer in alignment with you or is ready to be released, so that you can step out of this energy. When we're in victim mentality and we're feeling sorry for ourselves and we're telling ourselves the same stories over and over again, right, what we're actually doing is manifesting more of that, because what we think about and what we feel is what we manifest. So it's really important to change the stories that you're telling yourself, right? Not through force, not through hustle, not through doing all the things, but through awareness, right? When we are aware of what we are telling ourselves, the stories that we are repeating to ourselves, we can change that story, right? We can release the hurt, the pain, perhaps even sorrow that we have been holding on to because things have been difficult in the past, or you've been hurt in the past, or you've experienced something difficult, right? If we keep telling ourselves the same stories, then we're not going to be able to create change. We're not going to be able to move things forwards, right? So the Akashic Records are really asking you to notice where you are telling yourself the same story over and over again. And a good way to look at it is like, is it true, right? Is it helping me right now telling myself this same story? Yes, it may have happened, but that's in the past, and it's time to release that and tell yourself a new story that is going to be more productive in helping you to move forward. So it's time to come out of victim mentality, change your story so that you're manifesting more positivity, more great things in your life. So the third card that came up was authentic self, right? And this is really the heart of the reading, right? We want to be as authentic as we possibly can be, so that people get to know the real us. Is one benefit of being really authentic. And this really appears as a reminder that authenticity doesn't come from something new. It comes from remembrance. It comes from removing what no longer fits, right? We were born authentic, but society, family, ancestors, right? They've all had an impact on us, and we take on, again, stories that aren't perhaps true. We also take on roles and identities, right? And their expectations of our family, of society, right? If we look at what is expected of us when we are children, right? We're expected to go to school, we're expected to take exams, we're expected to go to university, get a good job, get married, have kids, buy a house, all of those things, right? They're the expectations. And then we take on the roles that go with that. So the student, the mother, the partner, and we lose our authenticity. So the records are showing you that many spiritual women are standing closer to their truth than they realize, but they're still editing themselves, for want of a better word, through what society expects of them, right? So expectation, we lose who we are at our core, at our being. So this card is really asking you to look at who you really are, without the roles, without the expectation, without the conditioning that we have experienced. So this is something that we look at in the soul-led reset that I did last week. We look at removing the roles and the expectations. So do go and check that out. That is on my channel. So we've just had this beautiful full moon in Leo, and this card is really asking you a direct question. What would change if you stopped adjusting who you were to make others more comfortable? And that's a really, really powerful question, right? So take the time to journal on it, and you will find other people's expectations, society's expectations, the roles and identities that you have taken on through being a wife, a mother, a partner, whatever it may be. So really look at what would change if I stopped adjusting who I am to make others more comfortable. So the records here are really asking you to commit to honesty, and that starts with yourself first. And it's interesting that the bonus cards, as I was only going to do 3 cards, has come up as forgiveness, right? And this is almost like the integration point. And it's not for forgiveness for forgetting. It's not forgiveness as an excuse, but to use forgiveness as a release, right? When we use forgiveness, we release the energetic charge to whatever it is that we are forgiving. So if you've had a relationship breakdown, for example, and you forgive that person for whatever it was that they did to hurt you, you forgive yourself for your role in that, right? You're releasing the energetic charge. You're not saying that this thing didn't happen. You're not saying that you condone that action. What you're doing is releasing the emotional charge, right? So the records are showing you that holding on to resentment, anger, pain, bitterness, all of those different energies towards yourself or towards others is anchoring you into versions of yourself, right? Past versions of yourself that we want to let go of, that we don't want to allow to define us, right? That's really, really important. So if you're still in the energy of the person that you were at that breakup, right, that is defining you. What we want to do is release all that energy, that energetic charge, so that we can come back to our authenticity, right? So that we can come back to the best version of ourselves. And it's also an energetic decision. Okay, that's really, really important. You are making the decision, an energetic decision to stop carrying what has already taught you a lesson, right? So we want to release that so that we can be as authentic as possible and as true to ourselves as we possibly can be. So together, these cards really carry a clear message, right? And it is all about self-partnership. It's really about honoring your boundaries, releasing old stories, standing in your true authenticity, and forgiving what no longer needs to be carried, right? So that you can step back into remembrance, right? Remembrance of your power, your sovereignty, your genius. All of these things get in the way of our true authenticity. And I think it's important to say that the records are not asking you for perfection, they're asking you to be present, right? When we have the awareness to see what we're carrying, the stories we're telling ourselves, we are in this present moment, right? Rather than worrying about the things that have happened in the past and what's to come in the future. And as you work with these 3 cards, you're going to notice quiet shifts and changes that change the trajectory of everything that follows. So do let me know in the comments how this reading resonated with you. Today's reading was from the Akashic Soul Alchemy Oracle. I will link the deck details in the description. And please do like, share and follow, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Ciao for now.